Hey everyone, welcome to National New Play Network's 2021 Annual Conference. Yeah! I'm Nan Barnett. I use the she series of pronouns. I am NNPN's Executive Director, and I am so glad that you're here with us. For those of you who joined us last night for the Playwright Slam, thank you. What a magnificent series of performances. And it was a delight to meet those amazing writers who are new to NNPN. I am sure they are not going to be strangers. Remember, you can find them through New Play Exchange, or you can always reach out to us and we can help you get connected. They were really astounding. We're so delighted that you were with us and that you got to see them. Here at NNPN, we believe that building a community of care, something that last night's Playwright Slam so beautifully exemplified, starts with acknowledging the deep histories of the lands and communities that we currently inhabit. For me personally, I'm coming to you from West Palm Beach, Florida, and that looks and sounds like naming that the place where I make my home is the traditional home of the Taino and Tequesta peoples and the current homelands of the Seminole Nation. You'll hear others today naming their communities whose land were stolen so that we can live here today. It's only the first step on a long road to justice for Indigenous peoples in the United States. But we're dropping some resources into the chat. If you haven't already, we invite you to type into the chat now who you are, where you're coming from today, and the names of the Indigenous communities that live there too. If you don't know, we encourage you to go to native-land.ca. That link is in the chat, and find out whose homes you are living on. Throughout the weekend, we'll also invite you to visit the Expo section of Hop-In to learn more about how you can learn, engage, and take action.
Thank you for grounding us with that care and acknowledgement, Nan. Welcome, folks. I'm Jordana Frater. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you from my home in Tongva, Quiche Land, colonially known as Los Angeles. Now that Nan has grounded us in our physical and environmental spaces, in our historical spaces, and our present spaces, I want to invite all of us to get just a little bit grounded here together in this virtual space. We like to do that by breathing together. And so I'm going to invite everyone to just get yourself seated, stood, or wherever you are. Plant your feet on the ground or on whatever surface they are on. Rest your hands either on your thighs, however feels comfortable for your body to be, and close your eyes. And take a breath in and a breath out. We'll do it 3 times together. Inhale. Again. And that got me a little bit of my feelings, y'all. Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this space. So as Nan mentioned last night, we titled this year's gathering, Growing Forward, Transcending the Transactional. And we did that because as we start to reemerge from more than a year of closure, we believe that authentic and mutually beneficial relationships that link artists, institutions, and audiences are the best way for us to grow forward and create a more robust, equitable, and anti-racist American theater, one that centers new work from diverse voices. And I'm going to pass it to Jess to talk about specifically how we're going to do that today.
Thanks, Jay. Hey, y'all. I'm Jess Hutchinson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you from the stolen lands of the Council of the Three Fires, which is also known as Chicago, Illinois. And I'm the engagement director here at NNPN. Today, we're going to be exploring the notion of creating these authentic relationships with audiences through a series of 45-minute conversations among some of NNPN's and some NNPN adjacent friends, the most innovative rising and veteran visionaries discussing big ideas as well as the concrete practices that these theater makers are putting in place to move to grow forward toward those visions. So you can click on the links in the speaker profiles to learn more about them. Find them on National New Play Network's Revolutionary New Play Exchange. You can also see what they're writing and reading there. Or you can send them a message through Hopin while we're here together if you want to learn more about their work and connect with them, and I suspect you will. Also, you'll notice that many of our moderators today are finishing up their first or second years as NNPN producers in residence, which is something Jordana and I know a little something about. And we are so proud of this cohort of rising leaders in our field. We can't wait for you to see them today.
And we invite you to be active participants in these discussions. I am reading Lindy's lines right now because her fire alarm, beautifully Mercury retrograde, went off as soon as we hit broadcast. So forgive me if I stumble through the text just a little bit. But if I were Lindy, I would be here to help welcome you and also to encourage your engagement in the Hopin chat throughout the sessions and the day. So as you move through the Hopin spaces, you'll see the chat section on the right side of your screen. And during the panel discussion, as long as you're not backstage, there will be two chat tabs visible. One says event and one says either stage or session. So please make sure that you're in the stage or session chat, and you'll know that you're there because there'll be a blue line under the word. And that way your contributions to the conversation can be seen by the other people who are in the stage or who are in the session. And then under the tab headers, you can also choose to participate in the chat thread, or you can click Q&A, and that submits a question directly to the panelists.
Hi everyone, I'm Rose, Administrative Coordinator here at NNPN, She, Her, Hers. I'm based in West Palm Beach, Florida, specifically on the lands of the Seminole, Tequesta, Yega, and Taino people. If you have any technical questions or need any help during the day, head to the event chat, which you can access from anywhere on Hopin on the right-hand side of your screen. I will be around for tech support and guidance all day. Just make sure you've selected the event chat. Look through that blue little line under the word event and type @Team NNPN to send us a message. You can also reorient yourself by clicking reception icon in the upper left-hand side of your screen. It's a little house. There, you can scroll through the schedule, decide where you want to go, and remember, first step when you hit a snag, just breathe. I'm going to pass this to Monica.
Monica seems to have frozen. You are seeing all of us in our live, technically challenged glory this morning. Monica, are you back with us?
Yes. What a morning. Oh my goodness. I am Monica Montoya. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Technically unblessed. NNPN Communications Associate, joining you from the ancestral lands of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, otherwise known as Pasadena, California. I am so pleased to welcome you and invite you to engage with us on Twitter and on Instagram today, if that is your thing. And you can use the hashtag NNPN Grow Forward 2021 to join in on the conversation. I will be repping NNPN's social media presence today. And if there is anything that y'all need, please tweet at us, DM us. There's also a YouTube live stream happening right now as we speak on the NNPN YouTube channel. Now I'm going to pass it to the good Anne to talk about how you can engage with people face-to-face during the conference.
Thanks, Monica. Hey, y'all. I'm so pleased to introduce myself. I'm Ann Morgan, Incoming Programs Director for NNPN. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm calling in from Monacan and Manahoac land, colonially known as Stanton, Virginia. And I want to tell you about two different ways that we're recommending you can use this Hopin platform to video chat with other conference attendees. These aren't the only options, and we invite you to explore all of the many features that this tool gives us. These are just the two we'd like to lift up for today's convening. First, give the networking feature a try. You'll notice in the schedule, we've got an hour break in the middle of the day for self-care. And if talking face-to-face with other folks gives you life in randomized pairings for 3-minute conversations, this is a super fun way to make that happen. The second option to share is the lobby, a space in the sessions section of Hopin that's always open for you to see other conference participants for potentially longer than 3 minutes and in more than pairs. When in doubt, head to the lobby and see who Serendipity connects to with.
Thanks. And so many ways to be part of so many conversations. And I want to close this introduction how we started with the idea that NNPN is building a community of care. We love connecting with each other through knowledge and idea sharing like today, as well as through artistic collaboration, relationship building, and collective decision making. That's what makes us NNPN. And we believe in being intentional about how we connect. So if you haven't already, we invite you to take time during one of the breaks today to read through our community assumptions and agreements that you can find in the expo section of Hopin. 2 of the community agreements that I just want to call quick attention to are the ones that ask you to take care for yourself, breaks when you need them, snacks, water, coffee, kitten snuggles, whatever it is that you need to be present today. And the other one I want to lift up is to care for one another by moving through this space with kindness and compassion, allowing ourselves and others to speak in draft. That's another one of our community agreements. So you get 3 for the price of 2. Georgiana, back to you.
We've got Lindy back from
Lindy.
I just wanted to give her a second to say hey and introduce herself and welcome herself to the community today.
Thank you. And thank you all for your patience as we navigate not just technical difficulties, but difficulties in our physical environments and geographies. Mine specifically is on the land of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples, colonially known as Denver, Colorado. For those who don't know me, my name is Lindy Rosario. I use she, her, hers pronouns. With NNPN, I am an outgoing board member and incoming team member, and I'm really excited to be part of this conference with you all and really excited for the folks you are about to see. So I'm going to pass it back to Jordana so we can get started. Thanks.
Thanks, Lindy. Welcome. I'm going to invite my panelists to queue themselves up in the backstage while I introduce them and get this party started, why you're really here today. Folks, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our outstanding opening plenary panel. Leslie Ishii is a director, she is an actor, and she's quite frankly one of the most inspiring people I have ever met. She is also artistic director of Perseverance Theater and a new NNPN board member. Joining Leslie is Real Vargas Alanis. Real is a multifaceted Indigenous queer community organizer, humanitarian artist, and curandera, healer. They serve as artistic director of In the Margin and are a member of the Bridge Program producer cohort. Also, welcome to the stage, Vicky Ramirez. I've gotten to know Vicky over the last year. She is a playwright and NNPN affiliated artist, a recipient of the 2020 Smith Prize for Political Theater Commission for Yuche Waken Bitter. And finally, our moderator, Courtney Elkin Muller. Courtney is so many things: an actor, a director, a dramaturg, a scholar. She's an educator. She's also associate professor at Butler University and recently published a really incredible book, which I will drop in the chat. I'm gonna get out of the way and let Courtney take it from here. Please enjoy this panel.
Haku, Pitop, Courtney Elkin Muller, Kakti Nali, Santa Walla Walla. Hello, my name is Courtney Elkin Muller, and I come from Santa Barbara, California. Barbarino Shumash is unfortunately not a language that my father was raised with, much to his and my disappointment. So I, like countless people with Native Californian ancestry, am doing my best to learn what fragments of the language exist. And I'm really grateful every time I have an opportunity to practice. So thank you for letting me do that with you today. I invite you to call me Courtney, and I use she, her pronouns. I would like to acknowledge that I am a guest right now on the, I'm going to try to do the best I can with this pronunciation. So I'm a guest on this Aina, which is located in the Ahupua of Waiahuli in the Moku Okula on the Moku Puni of Maui, which is the larger which is a part of the larger territory recognized by Indigenous Hawaiians as their ancestral grandmother. I recognize that Her Majesty Queen Liliku'ulani yielded the Hawaiian Kingdom and these territories under duress and protest to the United States to avoid the bloodshed of her people. And I further recognize that Hawaii remains an illegally occupied state of America. So thank you for listening to me. And of course, I'm going to ask that as you answer this first question to my wonderful, incredible panelists here today, that if you're able to include the lands that you are currently in, that would be really wonderful. So this is a question for all of you. You each do such interesting and important work in your communities and within the world of theater. Would you share a little bit about the work you do and a little bit about your personal and artistic journey into this work? Leslie, I'm going to make you begin, huh? Oh, okay, Vicky, were you about to start?
Yeah, I was a little bit uncertain, but just let me say quickly, Chwent Iskanahe, Kiafe Vicky Ramirez. Hi, I'm Vicky Ramirez. I am a citizen of the Tuscarora Nation from Six Nations originally, but I've been living in the acquired lands of the Lenape-Hulking for the past 30 years. Currently, I'm on the border of Lenape territory and Canarsie land, so any Lenape folks or Canarsie folks listening in, greetings. And if you're in the neighborhood, come by. I owe you at least a coffee and a pastry. So let's sit and chat. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And I'm delighted here with this wonderful panel, to be here with this wonderful panel to discuss this. And essentially why I'm a playwright, and why I started writing is because I didn't recognize any of my people when I saw them depicted on the stage, on the screen. They didn't sound like the people I grew up with. Res voices were almost always oppressed or, you know, there was the trope of the magical Indian or everything was anachronistic. And I just wanted to hear, this is 30 years ago, granted things have changed in a long time, but I just wanted to hear the people I grew up with. And so that's why I started writing initially. And one of the first things I heard was, well, since I was writing for Native people so we could hear ourselves, one of the first things I heard was, well, you're going to have problems finding your audience. I was like, we'll find them, we'll, you know, persist. But that's one of the first things I heard getting started. So that's where I come from. And I'm going to pass the hat now to Rael or Leslie, whoever wants to go next.
Rial, I think you're cueing me to go. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you, Vicky, for starting us off, and thank you to Courtney, who I assume will be back with us. Maybe there's a little technical glitch going on. I'm Leslie Ishii. I go by she, her pronouns, and I am Yonsei, fourth generation Japanese Americans. I'm a direct descendant of great-grandparents, grandparents, and parents who were basically incarcerated during World War II.
I cannot see or hear.
Hi, Courtney. We can hear you. Can you see us, hear us? Okay, not quite. Okay, but I'll continue. So I'm a descendant of U.S. concentration camp, World War II U.S. concentration camp survivors and non-survivors. And that has definitely influenced even the start of my career. But before I mention a little bit more about that, I'm here wonderfully so on, and gratefully so, on the unceded lands of the Gabrielino, Tongva, and Chumash, visiting here with family and friends. But I serve as the artistic director, humbly so, gratefully so, for Perseverance Theater on the unceded territories of the Occoquan peoples on Klinganami. And we also conduct our work on the land of the Dena'ina peoples, where we're grateful for their stewardship of the land since time immemorial. I'll just share just the very beginnings of how I got here. Was the very first time I was on stage was in the Great Northwest in Seattle, Washington, where I was born and raised. And it was in a reading called Breaking the Silence by Nikki Nojima Lewis. And it was the very first time anyone in the Japanese community had actually written representing the voices of our, at that point in time, becoming elders and ancestors who had been incarcerated in the World War II concentration camps. And we didn't know if anybody would come because they never talked about it. But what happened was we were at the University of Washington Union Building, and the place was packed, standing room only. And my dad came to me at intermission and said, "The men are crying in the bathroom." And I went, "Oh no." And I'm just like a teenager at this point. And he said, "No, it's good. I think it's the first time we're starting to heal from the camps." And that was a reading, a staged reading for the Legal Defense Fund for Gordon Hirabayashi, who had been incarcerated, actually jailed and picked up because he resisted the evacuation to those camps. So, and his Supreme Court case was back up again. So it's a real honor and pleasure to have started my inspiration to be a part of theater, really seeing how powerful stories being told are. They heal our communities, and our community is absolutely active social justice wise now. So I really bring it back and give tribute to Nikki Nojima Lewis for writing that play and bringing our community into our healing. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Rael.
Hindi hiari korishkani Ramon Real Vargas Alanis inda ima ana pueshkani Yokuts, California, Yokuts territory or Winton, California. Hi everybody, I'm Ramon Real Vargas Alanis. They them series or inda ima, and I am currently residing on Yokuts territory or the barrio of what is currently known as Winton, California. I am very excited to be here with all y'all. Leslie, I know I volunteered you to go first, but I just love listening to you speak. So let's see. A little bit of my work in regards, I am the artistic director of In the Margin, and we are an intersectional new works company. I am also the co-owner of Sexy Tacos, where the tacos are sexy. And so in regards to In the Margin, the way that we are founded was in response to institutional racism. And we realized that there was a huge need to have our own collective shows to be produced. And after a lot of barriers within institutions, that is when we decided to come together and not just, a lot of students sometimes do not receive the training, BIPOC students do not receive the training that our white counterparts receive. And so what we discovered was a skill sharing that we just kind of created to go and train outside and come in and train one another. Through that came devising, and through that also came writing our own new works and then producing. From then, that's when we continued producing our own new works until we became an official company back in 2015. And so my work relies a lot on community organizing. And so that's the way that I lead my, my company. And it's very much rooted in community organizing. And one of the reasons or ways that I was able to start combining community organizing and civic engagement into my theatrical skill sets and whatnot are through when I studied ethnic studies. So one of my degrees is also in ethnic studies. And through that, I received several special emphasis research career awards, and they were to research and produce certain types of programming. One of them was producing for marginalized career advancements, and the other one was for community and arts integration. And so through that, that is when I really started the height of really embodying within community. And by that, I mean really utilizing producing aspects and producing skill sets to, sorry, I just hear myself echo. So there was a lot of producing, thank you. So that's when we integrated a lot of the producing aspects, and I realized that producers make the best community organizers and vice versa. And so through that, that's when we began our work as both community organizers and producers. And so one of the biggest things within the margin is that we are all producers who are also community organizers. And so the way that we are embedded is very much on the ground civic engagement. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I'm Leslie, I'm hoping, I know that I had to hop off for a second, and I think I completely maybe missed you talking. Did you have an opportunity to answer that first question? You did. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. So when you heard the name of this conference, Growing Forward, Transcending the Transactional, what did you think we might talk about? What thoughts come to mind when you think of theater and performance, we can be broad if we want, that aims to transcend the transactional? And I'm going to go ahead just selfishly. I would love to hear from Leslie first, if that's okay, because I didn't get to hear her talk.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Courtney. Well, first of all, I want to also acknowledge, I think I might be the only non-Indigenous human on this panel. So thank you for including me in this panel. And I'm here with you very humbly, and have already learned so much as we were together to see this conversation. So thank you for your wisdom and the beautiful, beautiful way you transcend and bring forth the wisdom of your ancestors. I'm grateful for that. Gosh, the title, all I could think of, maybe it was my hope as well as my interpretation, was please let us dive deeper into the relational. I keep hearing and trying to remind myself of moving away from transactional versus relational to the relational. Our world is so highly, the form of capitalism, white supremacy culture, the settler colonialism, and getting back to root cause causes me to think about how do I go and really deepen relationships, as you were saying, Rial, community building, being from the Japanese community. We were so grateful when my family resettled after the camps. So many communities came forth to support us to resettle in Seattle and other communities where Japanese Americans landed, and after being released from the camps. So I grew up a community builder, a community activist. So, and I love what you said about producing and being community builders, community organizers. I think I have that within my DNA. But I just think about, please let us lean into the relational and reclaim that, and let that lead us forward, so that we can find new structures and new systems, as many of us already are, listening to our ancestors, really supporting with how we bring that forth with the wisdom of the Native and Indigenous peoples. They're still here for a reason. You all are still here for a reason. It's because you brought forth and never stopped honoring your ancestors and having relationship to the land and to your peoples, and the care and sustainability of your peoples. I really believe we have to decolonize to find the right purpose and right ways to actually create our sustainability or continue it. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Indeed, you did. Absolutely beautiful. And I think that relational and land-centered kind of value system is something that I hope I can see happen more often all around us throughout the globe, in fact. But I'd love to hear Vicky and Rial talk a little bit about what they thought when they heard this transcending the transactional. What a wonderful name for a conference, right, in this moment in 2021. So I'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
So I love that you mentioned the name, because if I'm going to be honest, the first time that I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I wonder how that room went in regards to finding out the name. Like, I was like, that's such a good title, Transcending the Transactional, and like with the iteration. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was just imagining like people going, rising above the transactional, moving away from the transact, and then like people kind of like brainstorming and coming up with transcending, be like, there it is. So whoever folks from NNPN, whoever like came up with the title, like that was really good. But so the other thoughts, it goes to, cool. So are we finally ready to have these conversations? Because at least with prior to my experiences with having discussions with other organizations in regards to relationship building and moving away from just having a like audience development, very much a trying to get people into the seats. It really made me go, okay, cool. It sounds like we are finally in a space to have these conversations, to be able to move forward, to be able to finally express like some of the work that we do that might not be perhaps traditionally seen as theater per se, in regards to the relationships to audiences. And then I saw the people who were on the panel. I was like, oh my God, these are going to be some really great conversations. Yes. So Vicky, I would love to hear about what you thought, your original like thoughts in regards to the title.
For me, it really struck home. Just initially when I read it, it's like transcending, and it's like, have we transcended yet? But when I first started writing plays, one of the first lessons that was being hammered into me from the folks who were my advocates and supporters were to understand that certain theaters are only interested in certain types of work. And it's nothing to do, it was meant to be reassuring. It was meant to be sort of, your work isn't bad. We support, like I have had development where people are like, your work isn't bad. We love it. It's just, our subscriber base is not going to. So I started thinking about how the art form itself is always valued. Like and it's unfortunately how it's set up for regional theaters and other theaters, that they have to operate on this survival mentality. And it's just so inhibiting towards the artwork itself and towards reaching towards your communities. It's like, well, it's like your community probably won't be able to make it into the theater, right? And it's like, well, how about invite us in? And so there's been a lot of conversations with other Native playwrights and some of the Native theater companies that we're working in. How do we partner? Because other theaters are reaching out now. They're trying to break that mold of sort of controlling things based on sort of how we could, as you said, get butts in seats, for lack of a better phrase. But it's like, everything's like butts in seats. And it's like, I get it. But then we're pandering and not doing the work that we're supposed to do, because as Native people, especially, storytelling is our history. Storytelling is our teaching. This is our way of sharing knowledge. And it's just thinking of it with that monetary sort of phrase. So it's interesting to me. I mean, so we are like reaching out to other theater companies and trying to see if there's ways we can partner up to bring the community in, to let the community know that this is an option. that this is an option to go, because it's almost like incomprehensible. Across the res is some of the places don't, never mind having theater in schools, they don't even have Wi-Fi necessarily all around. They don't necessarily have water all around. So it's like, how do we create these models to incorporate the community? Because Zoom itself has just given us such a great opportunity. It's opened a door for us in a way that it's inhibited a lot of other communities. And so I think that's helping towards building a model of transcending. But I'm sorry, Elkin.
No apologizing.
Absolutely.
I wanted to just expand a little bit about what you said, Vicky. It's in regards to, you were talking about the res and how there's a lot of lack of resources, correct? And so there's something that also came to mind when I heard the title was certain situations that I have encountered throughout other regional theaters. One of them specifically that doesn't leave my mind is when an audience development person asked myself and another audience, I was not an audience development associate, but I intersected and asked myself and an AUDEV associate to go to the res and solicit casino chiefs for money. And it just really made me feel, I was just like, okay, there's a huge disconnect here. If you think that we're gonna go off to the reservations and ask casino chiefs for money, to which I responded, what if you take us to Vegas? There's a lot of casino chiefs there. But I mean, it's one of, excuse me, it just made me, it reinforced the thing of me going like, yeah, there's a serious disconnect between, it's very transactional. It's like, how do you expect us to go into the reservation that has lack of resources, who might not even be able to come here to your very prestige organization, let alone how are you going to send me over there to go ask them for money? Like that's, and so this is something that I wanted to, that I think, and I hope that we're exploring is, how do we move away from that? And what I love about the folks who are here on this call is that they're already doing it. And so that's why I'm just, yeah, I'm a little giddy because I'm like, I'm so excited to just continue to hear these folks speak. So Courtney, I'll pass it back to you.
Well, I'm so excited to hear all of this enthusiasm too. You know, when I heard about transcending the transactional, what came to me as a dramaturg who works closely with Native theater development, and particularly I've worked quite a bit with Native voices at the Autry as a dramaturg and director, there's a lot of, it previously had been that many playwrights, I think, felt some real pressure to educate the non-Native people components of the audience about Native American issues. And I think that many playwrights are able to do that in a way that is seamless and dramaturgically beautiful and aesthetically important, and it's fine. And other times, if the playwright finds themselves kind of hampered by that extra tool that other playwrights don't have to, that extra job that other playwrights might not feel the pressure to do, right? Then it's on the dramaturg to kind of fill in those gaps. And so to me, I was thinking about transactional as in, well, what if we are at a place now where our art can speak for the purposes that serve our communities first? And then we can invite all of the other people who are curious, and theater people who go and see theater are some of the most curious and open people in the world. They can be, no matter what their background is. And so we don't need to explain or educate necessarily, right? What we just need to be and do. And I feel like that was the part that I was thinking is like, what if everybody looked at the art for what it is, and then they saw it as an invitation to learn more themselves, but not necessarily to have this transaction of education be part of the theater experience specifically. So that was part of where my head went, maybe as a dramaturg. But I have another follow-up question to this one. So do you have any specific strategies for engaging with community, or basically creating relations, right, based on reciprocity instead of those based on transaction?
Yes. I would say allot 5 to 10 hours for volunteer or community service. And so that way the staff can actually start being embedded within the region. Because personally, I believe if you're disconnected from the region of the people that you are residing in, well, what are you doing? So, in regards to, if you allot 5 hours for your staff to be able to go out and do some sort of community service in some regard somewhere, that's when you're able to start really carving and having those relationships with people with different organizations that do this community service work. Go and support their community service work, elevate them, go to the local food bank or the local Red Cross or the LGBT center or any kinds in regards to that. Because that's when you're going to start meeting people. That's when you're going to start like having those actual authentic relationships. And one of the things that I mentioned to the group several days ago was the beautiful thing about, or the silver lining for me about pandemic times, is that I've been able to be more in my hometown for, an extended period of time. And so my hometown, the barrio, is it has a negative connotation or reputation because it's an underserviced and underfunded community, mainly of Latinx demographic. And, that comes with redlining and whatnot. And so one of the things that I noticed here is that almost all of the stores here, minus Dollar General, are all family-owned businesses. And so we all actually buy from one another and are self-sustainable. And something that I realized, because I also have my own business here in Winton, is that, again, we all support one another. And it's one of those biggest things of, because we have those relationships and because we know our neighbors, because we know one another, and because like we buy our meat from the local the butcher shop, and we buy our bread from the local bakery, and we buy this from this person and this place, the favorite burrito place is down the street. And there's this constant like communal sense. And then that's when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just embedded in my culture. This is embedded from where I come from. And I realized that this is what I carry into my company, and the way that we lead and the way that we move forward is very much, how do we get embedded within the communities to then have these relationships? Because when you do, they will come and support you. Like they will come now that you have like this, this relationship built. Because sometimes imagine if some of these folks might have never entered a theater or I've had folks be like, I didn't know I was able to go into this very fancy place. I didn't know I was allowed in there, or something around those regards. To which it's like, no, yes, you are. Like, we want you to be, and we want you to come through. And so one of the biggest things that ITM does is that our folks really serve in different capacities, that we really lead with civic engagement on our forefront. And sometimes that means that our artistic projects have to be put on the back burner. And I know for some people and some organizations that might seem like extreme, but what happens is that we as theater artisans and as humanitarians, we have the resources and the skills to be able to provide to the folks in our region. And so this past year and a half has been a little extreme in regards to, there was these huge fires that were happening all over the West Coast. And so we had several of our people working with and volunteering with Red Cross to give aid. And this was like in between like dramaturgical sessions, dramaturgical notes, but we're in the front lines to be able to provide aid. We had people working with the food bank to provide aid for people who were being dislocated and whatnot, while we were also helping people who were in the Central Valley that were very much affected by the pandemic, and the canneries from like the food places and food processing plants were becoming hives of COVID, and people were just unfortunately dropping left and right. And so we saw this huge need of, we need to do something here. And so we utilized our dramaturgical people to get their basic labor rights and have like documents that really had and outlined what their rights are that were being impeded on by their employers. We then had labor rights workshops and with our teaching artists that have the curriculum that the dramaturgs made to teach them what their rights are, give them like little notes that says, no, 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 you can't do that. Like this isn't inhibiting on this and this and this. Teaching them how to unionize and putting them in contact with union reps and working with labor councils to then continue that work and continue those connections and having our producers do that. On top of our bilingual people, making sure that we are calling these folks and gathering their testimonies, transcribing them into Spanish and putting them in contact with legal representatives. Like all of this, I mean, for some organizations, it's extreme, but for us, that is what the heart of our company is. That is how we lead and that is how we move forward. And that is my recommendation for other organizations that want to do community work is who are your communities and who are you serving and how are you serving? How are you utilizing your skill sets and your resources to be able to show up for these people and to be able to show up for all of us in a time where we're in the apocalypse, y'all? Like, how do we serve and like help one another during these really hard times? And so all that to say is 5 to 10 hours of your, whether it's your work week or your work month, and I would just encourage the leadership to say, yes, 5 to 10 hours, go and do something that is not theater related, that is in community embedded, to just have, you're providing a service, but you're also, excuse me, you're also relationship building. And once that relationship is there, they're gonna come and support you. They're gonna come, but it comes with authentic relationship building. Thanks. I would, sorry.
Yeah, Leslie, I know that you have been doing a lot with your work as well, and would love to hear some examples about how you're working toward creating your company in reciprocity instead of in an ethos of transaction.
Sure. And Vicky, did you have a thought? Did you want to riff with Real first?
I just wanted to applaud Real for your work. Sounds amazing. It sounds like the dream. That's what we all hope for. For me, as far as it goes, just working from an individual artist point of view, it's just, excuse the neighborhood ambiance. What I try to do is just be present for the community as far as allowing them access and awareness of theater itself as being something that is an option. So, you know, I teach, there was a program I was working at with Alter Theater where we were teaching children on the res ages 9 to about 16 about theater, a little monologue writing workshop, and letting them know that their voices matter, their voices are valuable as far as dealing with the institutions itself. At New Dramatists, they've been open to me bringing in Native artists with the work I'm doing and keeping them in their roster, keeping them as a resource and access. So I appreciate that, but it's still, I don't know that my work transcends so much as I'm trying to just open the community more and bring us all together. And then I feel like as a force, we can turn, you know, and say, you know, look at the value you have here. Look at the histories, the stories that we have to share. And and like you said, Leslie, earlier, healing. But yeah, and I'm working with Keen Company as well, and they've also like reached out to me, and I'm able to provide Native artists for them to speak to, and just to see if there's a way that they can partner and things like that. Just trying to open up access, really, but that's all.
see Courtney looking, I think, zooming my way. Oh my goodness, I'm so inspired. I'm like taking notes. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm taking notes, y'all. You're inspiring me. For more actions we can take at Perseverance Theater. I just share all this very humbly, and just know there's been course corrections and tremendous learning, and learning to be flexible so that we can actually work against what in the American theater has been a very patriarchal system as well for some time, as well as all the white supremacy really laid in there. So I just give big kudos to my staff for their flexibility, their willingness to be on a learning edge. And I have to lift up our NNPN associate producer, Joseph Biagini. I feel like Joseph is just a great partner and thought partner, and really an action partner too. I'm grateful for that. You can't do this work alone, and so when you have great partnerships with your staff, it's everything. So I hope that you can build that too, so that you can move and be in a learning space together, learning action space. Actually, I think I'll start by just sharing. I went by my own Japanese heritage traditions, and trusted that, because that's my ancestors coming through, connected with all ancestors. And I took gifts, and I wanted to first meet the elders on Tlingit at the Tlingit and Haida, or Citizens Council of Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribe, as well as the Sea Alaska Heritage Institute. So President Peterson at Tlingit and Haida I met with our wonderful playwright in residence who's Tlingit and Dena'ina, Vera Starbard, who you may know because you heard her play Native Pride and Prejudice. Yes. And with our board president, Joe Bedard, who is also Alaska Native. And so what a gift to be able to go and meet that elder. And then at Sea Alaska Heritage Institute, Dr. Rosita Worrell, and who's a scholar in her own community's heritage and history, their legacy. And she acknowledged the Japanese American community that's there in Alaska, as our relationships there, and those who are also survivors of U.S. concentration camps. So it started out to be a beautiful exchange. So I always recommend many, at least there in the Southeast, the Alaska Natives absolutely appreciate gift giving. To your point, Real and Vicky, when you offer something first, your time, a gift that's meaningful. I brought them my highest quality of Japanese tea that I could find, and teapot and teacups, which also implies I hope we can sit down again in the future together and share tea. So that was my best way of making a gesture. I'm here on your lands, and I hope to be of service. And then we went on to basically also attend the Tlingit and Haida events that were open to the community, and also with Sea Alaska Heritage Institute. They had offered scholarships to the Perseverance Theater, youth programs, and they'd never been utilized. And I thought, I wonder if it's because we need actual Alaska Native arts educators to be with us. Who would come if they don't see themselves represented and feel safe and recognize those leaders and feel they have a relationship already, that they wouldn't be coming in to be whitewashed or westernized, but they would be coming in to honor their own traditions and culture. So that was beautiful. They were folks that had already been able to collaborate with us. These are culture bearers that collaborated on Vera's Devilfish, which opened our new chapter. And that was a journey too, to basically say, how do we decolonize our space and re-indigenize it? And that meant we curated the lobby with local Native Indigenous artists, Tlingit artists, and we basically also supported any ceremony that needed to happen to open the play, because there were beautiful and important, we say in the theater were props, but they say art, that was basically commissioned by Vera's parents. And there's a ceremony needed to bring those to life. So she said, we need to dance in and have ceremony. I said, Okay, let's do it. She said, well, normally that might take 3 days, but for you all, we could probably make it an hour. I went, okay, do what you have to do though. What do we need to do? And I'm just going to plug in my computer. And I said, well, let's be flexible. We can figure this out. So what we did, I said, let's just let our audience know they have to come early. They want to be a part, and we had food because they always celebrate with food. And we have this beautiful ceremony and the audience loved it. So if you're afraid they won't come, they will come. And if you honor the tradition and culture and languages of your Native Indigenous communities, they will come, and they will also feel that they can invite their community, right? The last thing I'll say is one of the things that I'm learning going forward, because those were, to me, really important, and how can I go deeper? I'm starting to learn about the governance of the Native tribes there, because it's different than, of course, U.S. federal government. And I'm learning how deeply Native Indigenous government actually cares for the people. What a beautiful example of how we could actually be more caring, go deeper with how we, like you, Rial and Vicky, are saying, how do we really care for people first? And I get flack from my board. I said, but I'm building a movement. If you don't build a movement and bring your community together and build, then why would they come? And that's going to inform our season. It's going to inform what plays we produce and that matter to our community. And the last thing I'll share too is around language revitalization. There's a big movement around, as you all probably know, around language revitalization. We're working now to actually have some Shakespeare translated. And I know it's Shakespeare, but a lot of Native Indigenous love Shakespeare. Well, then how do you want to do it? Can we do it in our own languages? And it's not going to, I push the envelope with someone who might be able to support us, get some support funding. I said, there's more than one native language. That's a stereotype. There's many in Alaska. And I said, Shakespeare brings people in from all over different places, lands, battles, all these things. I think we need more than one language. They said, we're excited. So we're up to 3 languages now. And I'm not sure we're done in that negotiation. So I'm just saying, keep pushing the envelope, you all. Keep pushing the envelope. And that's saying nothing about us without us. And now I add, and in the solution creation, include us. So I just thank you. Yes. And thank you for the support of our Alaska Native communities. They're helping us to learn and grow. And we want to make sure we're not creating more harm or any emotional labor for them, but hopefully create more joy because we're decolonizing and re-indigenizing.
Wow, what a beautiful last few moments together. I have to just say this has been too short of a panel for me. There's so much more in this conversation and so much more that I've learned from the view. And I'm just going to basically wrap things up because we're already a bit over time here. So I don't know if we really have time to do a final question. So instead, you three probably have some answers. I know you do to this question, but instead I'm going to ask whoever is viewing, whoever is in the audience, whoever's out there in the virtual realm or who might watch this later, to think about the title of this plenary, which is called Decolonizing Theater's Relationship with Audiences. And of course, we know that a lot of folks are decolonial curious. They have a variety of definitions and uses of what it means to decolonize, and a lot of debate, probably some of which is quite healthy around what that word means. So theater and theater spaces are mostly literally built on stolen lands. They have and continue to extract resources. Theater sometimes, leads to economic development, or what we also know as gentrification, right? And that leads to more displacement than in fact. And sometimes, or maybe even often, centers white experience, white guilt, white shame, and white stories, white hegemony. So, rather than spending the time for us to try to parse the definition of decolonial, which may actually inadvertently recenter settler colonialism, right, in that colonial part of decolonial. I'm going to ask you out there in the audience to think deeply about what you are doing to indigenize your theatrical spaces, your theatrical practices, and your theatrical ethos. So how does your work center the global majority, which are Black, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander peoples and communities and histories and stories? Because so often we talk about our peoples as if we are the minority because we've been treated like we are marginalized or lesser than. But the reality is BIPOC peoples make up the global majority, and our stories are interesting and vibrant